This video will be what I'll call a first look at a Giant Trance 27.5 1, which is their top-of-the-line aluminum model. I got this as a complete bike, and I'll do a full riding review after I put a month or so of riding on it. As of right now, I've not ridden the bike. I just got it built up yesterday. But I wanted to give kind of a close-up because I know this will be a popular bike, and some of you guys may want a better look at it than just looking at pictures on a website. So I'll go over some of my thoughts on the bike. This bike replaces a Giant Rain. I've been on a Giant Rain for a couple years now, which I really like the Rain. I had a Rip 9, a 9er Rip 9, which is of course a 120 millimeter travel 29er before I got the Rain. I really like the Rip 9, especially on the climbs. That was a great bike. I wanted something a little bit more playful on the descents, which is why I changed to a Rain. So I'm hoping that this bike will blend the two, be a little bit better climber than the Rain, and by that I mean getting up kind of rocky, rooty technical stuff. The Niner was really good at that. So I'm hoping again that this will blend the qualities of those two bikes. So we'll see. Let me go over some of the components on it. First, it is built with Shimano XT and SLX, which I really like because I do not race enduro. All of my racing is cross country. My stable of bikes includes a cross country bike and a trail bike, and so I don't need to spec my trail bike with real high-end, XTR or SRAM XO. So all I need is SLX and XT, really well working bulletproof components. May not be as light as the real top-end stuff, but if I get to a climb 2 minutes longer because the components are a little bit heavy, it doesn't really matter to me. And speaking of the weight, this bike weighs just a hair under 30 pounds. So pretty respectable weight for a trail bike with 140 millimeters of travel. So again, with the components, SLX front derailleur. This does have the XT Shadow Plus rear derailleur, and XT cranks, 2x10, and then on the brakes, SLX. Really like SLX brakes. They work to me as good as the XTs. Maybe not quite as light as XTs, but it does have the really quick reach adjustment, SLX shifters. These are not the grips that came on the bike. These actually came from someone who subscribes to my channel, so this is the first time I've tried those. You know who you are out there, so I really appreciate you sending me these grips to try. The Giant grips are good. They're lock-ons. I've been using Auris on my trail bike, and these lizard skins are very similar to the Auris, so I'm going to give these a shot. The cockpit, Giant did a good job on the cockpit. They put a 70 millimeter stem, which is perfect for this type of bike. I'm really glad they didn't put a long stem like a 90 or 100 on this bike. 70 again is really good for a trail bike. Same thing with the bar. They put a 730 millimeter wide bar on the bike, which is great. If you don't like a bar that wide, you can always trim it out a little bit, but to me that's a really good width. It's not crazy wide, but good for this application. While I'm going over the cockpit, let me come over here to the saddle. This is a comfortable saddle. Like I said, I haven't ridden the bike yet, but it's good. It's got the anatomically cut out thing here, which is good, and it's got some material here, so it looks durable and it's comfortable. So Giant saddles have gotten pretty good over the years. I've actually been impressed with their saddles. Now the seat post is a little bit of a downer, and I've used the contact seat posts in the past on my Rains and have had no problems at all. I like them. The design of this one I really like. It's designed so that you can run the cable externally or internally. So if you purchase this after market from Giant, you can mount it either way. The downer is there's a problem with it, and there's a cartridge inside, and the way they've designed it is this cartridge, if you're gonna run it, it's flipped right now so that you can run the seat posts with internal cable routing. If you wanted to run it externally, you'd have to pull out that cartridge and flip it around. The problem is the pressure inside the cartridge is not there. It's faulty, and I've actually got to send this back as a warranty item even before I've ridden the bike. Fortunately, the seat post does stay locked. I can ride the bike. It's just that I've got to get with Giant and do a warranty replacement, because when I lower the seat post by pushing the lever here, it will not rise, and there's just no pressure on it. So if I weight it fully, it'll go down real quick and won't come back up because there's no pressure in that cartridge. I think some of my past contact seat posts, there was actually a Schrader valve where you could add pressure to it, where this one is not. It's already charged, and that's the reason I have the cable sticking out here, is because I'm going to have to pull the seat post out. Now, I will say the design is nice in the sense that it's really easy to replace the cable on it. And this cable goes internally. It comes over here, goes into the side of the frame. It comes through the down tube, up the seat tube. And so if you installed this aftermarket, then you would have to probably remove the bottom bracket to be able to route it. But it's again really easy to change a cable. So I like the design. Hopefully when I get it warranted, it's going to be a good seat post. But it's a real bummer to have one not work on a brand new bike. This bike comes with Fox CTD. I've really become a fan in recent years of the Fox suspension, particularly the CTD. The CTD works great. It's simple, but it is effective. So over here you've got fully open for descending, kind of a pro pedal setting, and then over here is firm, and this is really firm, which I really like. In fact, it's pretty much locked out. I rode it around the neighborhood, and it is a lockout when you put it over to the right. Same with the fork. It's got the CTD settings, climb, trail or pro pedal type setting, and then a lockout. This is a Talus, 140 millimeters of travel, and down to 120 when you drop it. I like Talus forks. You know, when you do a lot of climbing, it's really nice to lower the front end. The climbing that I do is pretty steep, so it's nice to drop that front end so it's not wandering around. Now, it does have a 32 millimeter stanchion fork. It would be nice to have a 34. If I built this from the ground up, you know, I probably would lean to getting a 34. But, you know, Giant does offer the SX model, which is a 34 millimeter stanchion fork. The reason I didn't go with the SX is because I needed 2 chain rings in the front for climbing. The SX model is geared more towards shuttle type riding. I mean, you can climb with it, but I needed a pretty low gearing because of the amount of climbing that I do. So, you know, the benefit of the 32 is that, besides being a little bit less money, is that it's a lighter weight fork. So probably makes for a little bit better all-around trail bike. I'm not that heavy, so not having a 34 millimeter stanchion fork is not that big of a deal. But again, you can get the SX model if you really need one. It does have a 15 QR, of course, 180 rotors on the front with a 160 in the back. And since I'm looking back here, let me give my biggest complaint on this bike, and that is that Giant put a 135 spacing quick release hub, which I don't get it. I don't understand. With the modern trail bikes that are coming out today, almost everything is 142 through axle. I've even had a cross-country hardtail that's been a 142 through axle. So, you know, thumbs down on that, Giant. I'm sorry, but I'm a huge fan of Giant, but I really wish they would have put the 142. Now, the nice thing is it is convertible. In fact, if you buy this bike as a frame only, it comes with both. So this bolt here where the quick release comes into is actually fixed, and so you can convert it, but you know, not with this hub, I don't think. You know, the only reason I can think that they did this is they're trying to hit some magical price point. You know, their marketing guys may do some research and try to set everything at a certain price point, or they just had a bunch of these 135 hubs laying around, they had to use them. So again, you know, I don't get it, but like I said before, I'm not that heavy, so my riding, you know, probably won't make that big of a difference. I've heard Giant say in the past that they haven't noticed a big benefit in stiffness with the 142s, but I think the carbon models do come with 142, but not this one. So that's my biggest gripe. Everything else, I think they did an awesome job speccing this bike. You know, from the Fox suspension to the Shimano SLX and XT. Even the tires, these are great tires. I've never owned these tires, but I've ridden bikes with the Schwab knobby nick tires. These are a 2.25. Again, I think this is a really good spec for the bike. So as a whole, this bike is really spec'd well for its application. That is aggressive trail riding, probably doing a fair amount of climbing on the bike, and really fun on the descents. And like I said at the beginning of the video, I'll do a full review on the bike after I've ridden it. Just a couple more things before I wrap it up. It does come with the MRP chain guide. I've had this chain guide on my Reign. Works really well. It has kind of a roller inside, 2 rollers, so if you're in the small ring or the front ring, it goes on its own roller, so it rolls really smooth, not very much friction at all, but does a great job holding the chain, particularly on rough descents. If you've ever dropped the chain on a rough descent, you'll appreciate these chain guides. Let me talk about the cable routing. Really like the cable routing on these. I've owned a lot of Giant Maestro suspension bikes in the past, from Anthems to Trances to Reigns, and all of them have had an external routing that kind of ends somewhere around here, and then it jumps across over to the seat stays. And you know, it worked okay, but the cables did rub and they were kind of over on the shock. This is a really clean routing. Since I got this bike as a complete bike, I didn't install the cables, so I can't speak as to how they install, but it looks pretty easy. And you remove the cap, you drop it down, it's got a pretty big hole. Some bikes have kind of small holes and it's hard to fish them out, but this actually looks pretty easy. So you've got your front derailleur coming in here, as long or also with the dropper seat post. Front derailleur and rear derailleur come out the bottom. The dropper seat post, of course, stays inside the frame. And on the other side, you've got your rear brake and rear derailleur. Again, the rear derailleur comes out where the front derailleur comes out, and then the front brake comes out here. So really like the cable routing. It also comes with bosses for a rear brake if you wanted to run it externally, especially if you're building this bike as a frame only and you don't want to disassemble your hydraulic line to run it through the frame. That would mean bleeding the brake. So you know, that would still be a pretty clean routing. Run the derailleurs inside and just the rear brake on the outside. So good job, Giant, there. I think this is a big improvement over their cable routing in the past. And this bike does not come with pedals. I put my own XT pedals on the bike. And that will wrap up my quick overview of the Giant Trance 27.5 650B bike. I think this will be a really popular bike. Like I said before, Giant did a great job speccing this. Except for that 135 in the back, I think everything else is spot on. So I'm really looking forward to taking this out on the trails, and then I'll give you guys an updated review after I put some good miles in on it. Thanks for watching.